Hello and welcome to the news on N24. I am Mudi Wangam. Thank you for joining us. In the news this week, first, the headlines. In the Gambia, challenges watermelon sellers face. Newly born baby thrown in a dustbin. Ex-President Jammeh's lawyer speaks for the first time. Ministry of Health receives a consignment of nutrition from the Japanese government. Child Fund donates medicine to the Ministry of Health. And now the news in detail. As the rainy season comes to an end, the selling of watermelon is rampant in the Gambia as farmers travel to the combers to earn a living. However, there are a lot of challenges that these watermelon sellers face in the country, and N24 deemed it necessary to find out and make known what these challenges are. Ami Fadera has the rest of that story.
Watermelon, one of the most popular seasonal fruits grown in the Gambia, is now being harvested by many farmers across the country. N24 TV deemed it necessary to go out and talk to some of the watermelon sellers about the difficulties they face in the business. Aliu Jallo, a watermelon farmer, said the watermelon business this year is different from last year because of the taxes they impose on them, and they, the farmers, cultivate the watermelon so that they can make money out of it.
The watermelon this year is different from last year because we pay 4,500 to KMC for each place and the business is not going well. And a lot get rotten. It's really different from last year. We are farmers, and if we cultivate watermelon, it's because we want to make something out of it. But if you cultivate it and bring it here and still face difficulties, the work is too hard for that.
Al-Fuseni, a watermelon seller, said even though they pay for the place, selling becomes a problem and a lot of the watermelons usually get rotten.
So Jorefi na fake obligatoire. So tami.
If you bring the watermelon here, you will pay for the place, and it's also difficult to sell a lot. Will get rotten. The problem is we don't have facilities that will buy the watermelon from us. If we have facilities, then a lot of the watermelon won't get rotten. I beg the government to help the watermelon farmers.
Manko ñaan nguri pour ñu dimbale affaire halini.
Alassana Nyang, a consumer, said watermelon is expensive and it should be reduced so that daily consumers can afford it.
It's really expensive. They should reduce it for us so we can buy for the government. Should also reduce food stuff because it's really expensive.
The general concern of some of the watermelon dealers we spoke to said is lack of storage facilities, proper means of transportation, and inconsistency of market price. They all call on the government to help them with storage facilities in order to reduce the amount of watermelon that gets rotten each year. Reporting for N24 TV News, I am Ami Fadera.
Child Fund donates medicine to the Ministry of Health. On Thursday, the Ministry of Health received a 40-foot container full of medical items, among which are wheelchairs. Alimatu Juf has the rest of that story.
Child Fund is a child protection and child development agency. Representative of Country Director Child Fund, Farmer Dab, said they will never bring any item that is not identified, approved, or recommended by the ministry.
The MC mentioned, we will never bring any item in this country that is not identified, approved, or recommended by the ministry. Anytime our international office engage a donor, the donor will send us a list of items that they have. And we will always share that with Fatu and her team. They will go through that list and identify those materials that they think are needed in the Gambia. But they don't only look at the need, but we are also very particular about the expiration dates. We don't want to bring in items that will just be here 1 week, 2 weeks, and they expired, and we start having issues with them. So they are very much particular about those things. We also, as Child Fund, align our request with that. So we don't bring anything that is outside what they request for us.
Fatulamin Samete said they have received 40-foot container full of medical items to help them in the fight against COVID-19.
Of what has been donated, but we did receive a 40-foot container full of very essential medical items, including antihypertensives, painkillers, antibiotics, and the essential personal protective equipment to help us in our fight against the coronavirus, which is still very much amongst us. We also have wheelchairs and certain surgical items. So as you can see from the sample that is displayed here, this contribution is very, very useful to us. And for that, we are very, very grateful to Child Fund and partners.
Child Fund was established in 1984. 14 and 24 News. I am Mariam Sisa.
Newly born baby thrown in a dustbin. The Gambia is the smallest country in West Africa with a population of less than 2 million people, more women than men. Many women in the Gambia and across the world wish to have their own babies, but in some parts of the world, babies are being thrown in dustbins. Let's take a look at this video. Over now to news from beyond our borders. Mozambique locals find decapitated bodies. Locals in Mozambique's province of Cabo Delgado found decapitated bodies of 7 people on Monday, including a 3-year-old child, according to local security forces. The first 2 victims were killed in the village of Lumumwa while they were looking for water, according to residents of the area. They said the others were killed in Pancoma and Nagulu. Ami Fadera has the rest of that story.
Locals in Mozambique's province of Cabo Delgado found decapitated bodies of 7 people on Monday, including a 3-year-old child, according to local security sources. The first 2 victims were killed in a village of Lumumwa when they were looking for water, according to residents. They said the others were killed in Pancoma and Nagulu. All are suspected to have been victims of jihadists in the region who have been losing grounds to military forces since July. Cabo Delgado is rich in natural gas but has been terrorized since 2017 by armed insurgents, with some attacks claimed by the extremist group Islamic State.
U.S. Secretary of State speaks to Sudan's deposed Prime Minister. The U.S. Secretary of State, Anthony Blinken, has spoken on the phone to Sudan's deposed civilian Prime Minister following Abdallah Hamdok's return home. Mr. Hamdok was arrested and detained during Monday's military coup. Mary Madeleine Jai has the rest of that story.
The U.S. says Secretary of State Anthony Blinken has spoken on the phone to Sudan's disposed civilian Prime Minister following Abdallah Hamdok's return home. Mr. Hamdok was arrested and detained during Monday's military coup. In a statement, the U.S. State Department said Mr. Blinken welcomed Mr. Hamdok's release and reiterated his call to the Sudanese armed force to free all the civilian leaders rounded up in the last 24 hours. Protests against the seizure of power by the military continued into the night, with crowds in the capital, Khartoum, marching and blocking main roads. Earlier, General Abdel Fattah al-Burhan sought to justify the coup by accusing political groups of inciting civilians against the security force.
27th of October will surely be a day for the people of the Gambia and beyond to always remember, as it is the day a prospect goalkeeper tried the irregular migration to reach her destination in Europe. Fatim Jawara was tipped to be a plus for the Gambia after taking part in the Under-17 Women World Cup, but now that can never be a reality. The GFF held a Fatim Jawara press conference at the Football House in Kanifing, and here is more of the report by our Mary Madeline Jai.
Born on the 13th of March in Serekunda, the Gambia, Fatima Jawara's dream was to be a professional footballer, but this dream was cut short after her breath was seized by the Mediterranean Sea through the irregular migration route. Fatim began her playing days in the Gambia Domestic Women League, playing for one of the women's league giant Red Scorpions. Jawara was snapped up by the Gambians under-17 women team coach to represent her country of birth in the under-17 World Cup in Azerbaijan. 27 October was when Fatim lost her life, and on what is a sad day to recall a player, the GFF held an anniversary to honor the death of Fatim. It is no doubt the irregular migration route, commonly called back way in the Gambia, is a risky route to venture into. Thus, FIFA will be launching an initiative which they say will be a game changer for women football players. This initiative will help promote players' belief of making it in their various countries. Fatim Jawara is a FIFA representative, while speaking via Zoom, said the journey is a dangerous one to venture into.
Pay our tribute to Fatim, but to also remember the youth the African youth that we are unfortunately losing in the same journey to Europe, who always try their best to find better perspectives for their own lives and for their families. But this is a very dangerous project, very dangerous journey that they take, and we would like to get involved. When I say we, FIFA as an international organization for football, the football is a responsible organization and who tries their best to really be more socially and be socially responsible alongside GFF above football, because football is very good and we're passionate about football, but we also have to pay attention to what is happening to people's lives. People playing football, people involved in football, and also people passionate about football, following it. The message is clear. We want the players, the sport persons, to be living their dreams, to play the game they love, of course, but we also want them to be safe, and we want them to have perspectives, to have activities they can work in their lives in order to provide for their families.
Lantombang Tamba is the third vice president of the GFF and said it is a sad moment whenever Fatim is recalled, as she was a good member of the team.
Fatim was among the players that represented us in Azerbaijan, and she, alongside other players, they did very well, extremely well for the first time, representing the country at that level. And we could have remembered her in a different way, but this is what God has destined, and we have to remember her through this way. It is a sad moment whenever Fatim's name reflects back in our minds, in our memory, that we try to remember her. But this is what we are all waiting for. One day will come, in whatever way it will meet us, we have to answer to the call of Almighty Allah. I want to say here that Fatim was a very good member of the team that represented us in Azerbaijan. She performed extremely well, making us proud as a nation. And of course, she left us unaware. When I say unaware, we not being in a position to know when she left, in search of greener pastures. It was during that course that she lost her life. Of course, at the GFF level, when we got the news, it was a sad moment. but there was little we could do. But we decided to take it in a different form, to let the world know that this was what happened to her. And of course, we use it as a stepping stone to sensitize other players, to make them know that even whereas they remain in their home country, of course, they are likely to make it in life. So this is what we've been doing, and of course collaborated with FIFA, who also was very interested in the way this thing happened.
On an emotional day for everyone, especially the family members of Jawara's Naifatu's sister of Fatim, couldn't say a word as her emotions took advantage of her. Basiru, brother of Fatim, spoke highly of Fatim's determination to make it in life.
Depuis bi mu nekkee di dem school ba ni muy commencé football yépp yéen bi mu amoon rek mooy mu dimbale yaayam.
Fatim was someone who desired for one thing in her entire life, and this dream was for her to go outside the country in search for greener pastures. Fatim was a lady who loved playing football. She was a lady who was so helpful to her mother and a respectful person to the community. In February 2016, Jawara left her homeland Serekunda in Gambia and crossed the Sahara Desert to Libya. The memory of the deceased shall live on the hearts of many women's football lovers and beyond, as 27 October will be a reminder of a future prospect's sudden death. Reporting for N24 TV, Mary Matlenjai.
And there you have it for this edition of the news. Join us next time, same station. I am Udi Wangam.